Hello, everybody. This is Noah and John, and we are from UrbanDigs, and it is Monday, so you're going to get your Brooklyn weekly market update. Johnny, let's get right to it. I'm looking at Brooklyn supply, 3,427 things. It is on the rise. Show me that chart.
Yeah, it's coming back to Brooklyn supply, about 3% on the week, almost 3%, I should say, 2.7 if you want to get pedantic. It's creeping back to where the high of 2022 was back in the summer. So it's not a lot, but it is a bit of a return on the supply side here.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. I guess we got a few more weeks of potential rising supply as we get to the peak, and then mid-October, late October, we start to see that fade. We'll keep an eye on whether or not anything changes or goes outside seasonal trend there. Let's move over to Brooklyn pending sales, the measure of demand, 2,213. Johnny, show me that chart.
Yeah, and this one, as we saw the rise in supply, we're kind of seeing still the fade in pending sales here is down 6% on the week, and really we're seeing all of those the flurry of sales from the first quarter, the second quarter, starting to leave this chart as those sales close, and it's just not being replaced at the same pace. So this chart is continuing to reset lower. It's interesting, right? Because that 2020 line is on the way up. The 2021 line's down. We're right in the middle, and it's going to be interesting to see where this line, the current 2022 line, stabilizes and starts to tick back up after the contracts start rolling in later this month, perhaps, maybe early October. We'll see.
Yeah, I think we had another 2-3 weeks until we start seeing that roll of contract activity, and we'll be able to measure whether or not this fall is coming in light or at trend or above trend, hopefully. But very, very well said, Johnny. That is exactly what's going on with pending sales. It's happening in Manhattan. It's happening in Brooklyn. And when you put these two together, supply and pending sales, and I look at this market pulse chart in Brooklyn, for buyers out there that are just saying, I don't get it. Where's my buyer's market in Brooklyn? I mean, this is about as best as you got. I mean, it went from a seller's market down to the neutral zone, mid-neutral zone, and it's starting to tick up. Look at that little blip up right there. And I just want to bring it out because, we usually say is that when this market pulse falls and then it changes that slope and starts to do something different, that is usually a signal for buyers to take a good look at this market because the leverage might go around and against you. I don't know if it's going to follow through, Johnny. That's the kind of unknown here. So we'll keep an eye if this is a false breakout or something like that. But buyers should make note in Brooklyn that the leverage pendulum seems to have bottomed and is now turning the other way.
Yeah, and Brooklyn is a much more differentiated market than Manhattan, right? So Manhattan is really made up of co-ops, condos, and a smattering of townhouses. But Brooklyn, the townhouse market is quite large. So I'm curious, since you got this up, if you could just go to the chart settings and let's just look at the pulse by property type and get a sense if this sort of trend is happening across all the property types or it's isolated to one. And we look at it here. I mean, the townhouse market is clearly holding up a little bit stronger than the co-op and the condo markets, but we're seeing that little tick up in each of these property types. So it's certainly too early to call a trend, but it's certainly if you're in the market, this is a point to start maybe paying a little bit more attention to what's out there, because this may be, if you're looking around, this may be a good time to evaluate the situation you're in.
Yeah. And this is thank you, Johnny, for asking me to slice and dice this chart like this. Townhouses are always going to be naturally lower in terms of pulse because that market's just a little bit more illiquid, but it's not far. It's not far from where co-ops and condos are. And you're right. I see co-ops and condos right over here. They took a more steeper decline in terms of leverage than the townhouse market did. So I see exactly what you're saying. Interesting. Let's go to the regular Brooklyn market, Johnny. Let's go back macro. Let's take a look at those weeklies. I'm looking at supply 1 week, 246 things. That's ticking higher. Show me that chart.
Yeah, it's nearly 10% higher now, a little over 9% higher on the week. And, we've already seen the 270 something units came out a couple of weeks ago. We're going to start, as the historical trend shows, we start seeing less and less each week. That's exactly what we're seeing now. So I don't expect another big pop on a weekly level in Brooklyn supply, but rather we're going to start seeing some successive decline. So, to kind of go back to that pulse analogy we are just talking about a second ago, right? We've seen that wave of supply come on. And so if we're just looking at historical trends, from here on out, it's most likely going to be less and less each week. So that is a bullish sign for the pulse. That's going to help keep the pulse higher.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we're saying buyers, you want to keep an eye on this market because you're not getting that listing wave coming on with the ferocity and the sustained depth as you would probably like to have a shift in the market. So that's going to have a muting effect on the Brooklyn market. Let's go switch to contract signed. The 1 week demand measure in Brooklyn, 104 things. That's down 23%. Johnny, show me that chart.
Yeah, it's a big drop from last week. Still above 100, which is kind of what we want to see in a sort of in between state as we're sort of heading into that fall busy market. 2021 turned the corner a little bit earlier than 2022, but the next couple of weeks, if we're going by historical trend, should start to see an uptrend in contract signs. However, Noah, we're really sort of at the low still.
Yeah. And you know what? Look, this is the time of the year that it's supposed to be low. So we keep saying that over and over again. September is our sluggish month. It is still September. And we're looking
Yeah.
back at the last week's count. So we have another week of sluggishness, and we're very aware of that. And we're going to look at what this thing does later. I'm looking at the 1 month pace. Okay. It is down. It's supposed to be down. It's at 501. And let's go to the chart du jour and let's take a look at where that number has gone over the last few years in Brooklyn. And as you can see, the era of that record liquidity, like we did the same thing for Manhattan. I just want to put this into perspective for everyone. It's over. It's just over. It's that whole market and those forces and everything that is now gone. We are at a brand new level. As you mentioned before, this is now a new 2022 low marked by this green
Right.
bar. And you know what? We're regressing towards the more historical range that this number is supposed to be in. And that's what's going on in Manhattan, and that's what's going on in Brooklyn. Have to be aware of where we came from before we go say, oh, we're tumbling into a new COVID-like liquidity environment. We're not, because that would be this type of situation. And we're all the way up here on the right. And we're probably about to start turning around from this point. So it's very important to make the distinction of where we are considering where we came from, John.
Yeah, and if I could, I'd just like to talk about the far right side of this chart. It looks like the market kind of peaked up and then is just cratering. That peak up represents, it represents what happened. The market went a little too far too fast in July. We saw the lows hit in July, and we saw a bit of a rebound in August as the buyers kind of came back a little bit. So if you look at that 2021 number, that steep up in this fall happens early October. So it's not like this little hump here represents the peak market for the fall in 2022. It's not actually. This was actually August. It's kind of coming back down to where it normally should be. And we still have yet to see the rise. And it's going to be interesting. I'm not saying we're going to see a huge rise like we saw in 2021, but we should see that contract sign pace increase from
Yeah.
somewhere down around here. It could take a little bit lower, but we do expect an increase most likely in October once that gets around.
Yeah. And that's exactly what seasonal is supposed to do. And that's what's upon us. And the question is, what does it increase to? Right. Again, either we're going to increase that to that average, we're going to be below that average, or we're going to go above that average. Put me on record for being at the average or
Right.
below average this time around. Johnny,
Right.
thank you for pulling up all that data points. It is very helpful to see the market in this way. I am Noah Rosenblatt. That is John Walkup. If you guys got questions, we got answers. Don't forget to visit our forum right down over there. If you want any of the charts that John whipped up today, they're going to be right over here. If you never tried UrbanDigs before, give it a shot. You got the first 2 weeks free. Other than that, this has been your weekly Brooklyn market update, and we'll catch you next time.